he has a sit down and he says, I like the way he sings and then she sings. I think you guys could be a Fleetwood Mac for the 80s.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Live Through That, the podcast where influential artists of the 80s and 90s talk to us about a pivotal moment in their lives. I'm your host, Mike Hipple, and we're beginning a month of stories from artists that are going to be performing at the Cruel World Festival in Pasadena on May 20th. There will be stories from John King of Gang of Four, Martha Davis and Marty Gerard of the Motels, and Mick Conroy of Modern English. But first up, we have Bill Wadhams from the band Animotion. You know them for their massive hit Obsession, but there's more to them than just that one song. Singer-songwriter Bill Wadhams talks to us about those early days, meeting co-vocalist Astrid Plane and forming Animotion.
When I moved to Los Angeles in 1979, I had aspirations of finding a way into the music business and into my own recording career. My brother Tad is a fantastic bass player who went on to play with Sheryl Crow and also toured with Bruce Willis. But he and I had a band in Los Angeles. In the heyday of the new wave, I changed my name to Billy Bond, and we called the band the Billy Bond Band. And I just really loved the players. We had a great drummer named Jeff Stern, a guitarist named Rick Boston. It was my favorite band, really, just about my favorite band of all time. And we recorded quite a bit, but we couldn't get any record company interest. At that point, I got a call one day from the manager of a bodacious Brit named Astrid Plane with a side ponytail. And this manager said, I've seen you play, and I'm managing this young woman, and I think that the two of you would work well together. She's got a band that's just gone through a breakup. They've lost their lead singer who was singing with Astrid and writing all the songs and playing guitar. So we're looking for someone to fill that spot. And, at that time, I was not looking to join another band. I liked my band, but he told me they had a budget to record my songs and connections in the music business. So I agreed to begin rehearsing with them, and Astrid gave the band a new name, Animotion. We played in the clubs, recorded a demo, and in what seemed like no time at all, a legendary A&R man, Russ Reagan, came to see us in our rehearsal studio. Now, A&R, as you know, stands for Artists and Repertoire, the people that discover and develop artists. And Russ Reagan signed Elton John, Neil Diamond, Kiss, and he's known for suggesting that the Beach Boys call themselves the Beach Boys. He actually gave the Beach Boys their name. So this guy's been around a long time, and he comes to a rehearsal studio where Animotion is playing. And after we play a few songs for him, he has a sit down and he says, I like the way he sings and then she sings. I think you guys could be a Fleetwood Mac for the 80s. And he signed us to Polygram Records. And that was a huge pivotal moment. I love Russ Reagan. He's since passed away. Rest in peace. A wonderful guy. And he was our godfather through 2 albums. That's how the ride took off for me, at least. In the Billy Bond band, we used to play a song called Everything's Leading to You, which became one of the only songs from the Billy Bond band that won on the first Animotion record. No, I guess there was another one. Holding You was another song from Billy Bond that went on that record.
One of the songs that Bill played for them that day when he first met Astrid was All in a Day. Bill dug up the original recording of that song for us to hear. It's a song that Bill thought should have been on that first Animotion album.
Dogs go wild and static, howling for rain to pour. Girlfriend clings to a fabric, glass breaks on the floor. All in a day, in a day. All in a day, in a day. All in a day. The air so dry that it's cracking. I heard a scream somewhere. There's a stretch like elastic. Girl, get out of my hair. All in a day, in a day. All in a day, in a day. All in a day.
Bill's songs became the backbone of the band, but one of those songs, Obsession, was brought in from outside the band and took on a life of its own.
This was another pivotal moment in my career with Animotion. On our first album, I was the only writer within the band that was writing songs for the album. Actually, correct that. Most of the songs on the album were written by me, and then the producer came in with an outside song from a publisher, and that was Obsession. And at first, I couldn't believe that he was bringing this in. It sounded so different than anything that I had written and recorded with Animotion. And he had initially said there will be no dance music on this record. We'd actually discussed that because Astrid was loving Human League and some other Brit bands that were coming out and really liked that sound. And but the producer distinctively said, no dance music. This is rock. We're going to break it on KLOS, which was the big rock station in Los Angeles. But Obsession came in. We recorded it. I had mixed feelings about it, but Astrid loved it and thought this is going to be a hit. I had my doubts about it. I just didn't quite get it. But, so at that time, it was frustrating for me. And when the album first came out, it was released and played in Los Angeles for about 9 months. It was getting played in LA, but nowhere else until Z100, one of the biggest pop station in Los Angeles, had a battle of the unknown bands, and Obsession went up against other up and comers. 5 nights in a row we won, so they added to the playlist, and then other stations around the country took note, and it exploded. But for a period of time there, I thought this is going nowhere, and then it took off. And when it did take off, then I felt like, okay, I don't care who wrote it. This is a hit song, and I'm going to ride this as far as I can go. And we, of course, we had a blast with that. But then it was a matter of reverse engineering. Like, okay, are we supposed to write songs that sound like a hit that was written by someone else? Some of the band thought yes. I said no. People just want to hear another great song. They don't necessarily want to hear something like Obsession. That was a bit of a debate within the band. And now I was competing for writing with the keyboard player and the guitarist who went into other studios. it was too bad that we didn't write together. But I hadn't done much writing with other players, so I wasn't really used to that. In retrospect, it seems like, of course, you would do that, but we got into we were a bit scattered going into our second album, which is why the record company said, okay, you have to have at least one song written by the person who wrote Obsession. And that's where I Engineer came from, written by Holly Knight and lyrics by Bernie Taupman. So some nice star power there. But it didn't reach the success of Obsession, although it did chart on the second album. It didn't reach nearly the success of the first hit. Looking back, I think that the producer, although I've had some issues with the producer in the past, let me see how the best to say this. Although I disagreed with the producer's choice of bringing in a song from outside of the band, I can't deny that it was such a great hit, and it was such a great ride for me and the band, Obsession, that looking back, I appreciate what he did. We did not work with him on the second album. Maybe we should have, because he had a vision for the band, and that vision worked. So I have to admit that. But we moved on and worked with another producer named Richie Zito, and we enjoyed working with Richie. But I don't. Sometimes I've thought to myself, would I have rather succeeded or failed just on my own writing? And that's not the way it went. And I had my song. A song that I wrote called Let Him Go was the second single for Animotion, and it got into the top 40, but I doubt it would have gotten there if it weren't for the hit that preceded it. So, that helped. That did help to move me forward as a writer. And also having a record deal as we did, it helped me to work on being a professional musician.
Obsession fits in nicely with those songs that have a strong male-female dynamic, songs like Human League's classic Don't You Want Me, which had come out a few years prior. Did songs like that help inspire their take on Obsession?
That was never brought up in the discussions about recording. What was brought up was when the producer said to us, have you guys heard Frankie Goes to Hollywood? Relax. And so it was just the sound of that big record, that wonderful sounding record that the producer thought. Let me say this another way. The producer, we recorded 5 songs for our album. Then the producer went to England. While he was in England, he heard Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and he came back and said, "Hey, I've heard this song. It's amazing, and I found a hit. I found a song from a publisher that I think could be right for you guys, and we're going to produce it in that way." And I kind of didn't get it because it sounded so far from what I was doing. I didn't see how it could work with the album. But that didn't seem to concern him, at least at the time. When after Obsession was released and it was a hit, then they took my song Let Him Go, took it to New York City, gave it to a remixer who added synth bass and sampled drums. So now a song of mine sounded more like Obsession and entered the charts. So it was just I had a hard time digesting what was happening because a lot of it was out of my hands as the creator, and I was used to being the creator in the band.
The original incarnation of Animotion disbanded while trying to make a third record in the late 80s.
Being a songwriter was very important to me when I was in Animotion, to the point that when I was, being a songwriter, it was so important to me that when we approached the third album and the A&R department was not approving any of my songs, I quit the band. Now, looking back, I think to myself, was it not enough to be the singer of a band that was having hit songs and a career? At the time, that wasn't enough for me. One of the reasons it wasn't enough, because if you're not writing, you're not making any money, and that's critical. You come home to a wife or partner and you have bills to pay. You'd like to buy a house someday or a new car. If you're not the writer, it's unlikely that's going to happen unless you sell a lot of albums. But then again, you have to pay back the record company for every dime that they spent on the album, the videos, and touring, and then pay your managers, pay your lawyer, and then split it with 6 people in the band. And there's not much left over. So if you're not writing, you're struggling. But Animotion went on to have another top 10 hit on the 3rd album called Room to Move. And I didn't sing that song because I was gone. So looking back, I mean, I watched the new Animotion on television, on the Arsenio Hall show. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm really torn, because there's a part of me as a singer who loves to perform. I could have been there. But as a writer with an ego, I wouldn't allow myself to do that. And, I don't regret it. I made the choice, and I enjoy the way my life has transpired and how it's turned out. But looking back, I really think that that I sort of I denied my performing self the opportunity to carry on with the career by just insisting that I be the writer.
The original band reformed in 2001 and went on to release a new record in 2017, Raise Your Expectations. Bill is able to scratch that performing itch by being a part of the band again. In addition, Bill is currently working on a musical memoir piece, a one-man show kind of like Springsteen on Broadway, where Bill goes through the arc of his life through song and story.
When I started working on a musical memoir, I thought this is going to be my best songs and my best stories. But I began working with a director, and this theatrical director named Bill Fennelly, he's worked on Broadway and he's actually worked all over the United States. And Bill asked me, is this a concert or a theatrical piece? And I said, well, I want it to be a theatrical piece. And he said, well, then we need to string together these thoughts. We need to have like running themes through your show, not just scattered stories. We need to tie these things together. So we move through your story in an arc, and we encounter conflicts and problems, and we resolve them in a way that the audience can kind of follow you through the path of your life. So this show has a combination of songs that were written recently, as well as songs that were written a long time ago. For instance, the first song is a song called Up in the Air, and it's about being a bit at odds between here and there, trying to make a critical decision that's going to affect people, and being torn about that. The show kind of starts that way because a lot of my show has to do with trying to figure out how to get through a crossroad in my life, how to transition from one part of my life to the next. Then some of the songs were written specifically to tell the story. The second song has to do with my brother Tad and I seeing the Beatles on TV in 1964 and being so inspired by that it became the focus of our life. That's followed by a song I wrote in 1975 about my first love and my dream to have a beautiful life with her. So it's a combination of recent songs that were written specifically to move the story forward, and then songs like Everything's Leading to You that I wrote in the 80s, and they have a place in the story and in my life.
Thank you to Bill for taking the time to share his story and some of your early music to boot. I also want to thank the band Joop Joop for creating our brand new theme song. You can find out more about their new album at joopjoopmusic.com. And if you have a story about one of the bands performing at Cruel World, maybe they were one of your first concerts, or one of their songs was your prom's theme song, anything, send us a voice memo at mhipple@gmail.com. That's MHIPPLE@gmail.com. I'd love to do a bonus episode featuring some of your stories. And a friendly reminder that you can also buy my book on 80s musicians and where they are today, 80s Redux, and its sequel on 90s artists, Live Through That, wherever you buy your books. If you like this show, please subscribe so you'll know when the latest episode comes out. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Mike Hipple Photo, all one word. Thanks for listening, and we'll close out this episode with another of the Billy Bond Band songs, Temporary, from 1981.
That tempo